World War II, an analytical overview of the global conflict and its aftermath. World War II, 1939 to 1945, stands as the deadliest conflict in human history, reshaping global political, economic, and social landscapes. The war's roots lay in unresolved tensions from World War I, the rise of fascism in Europe, militarism in Japan, and territorial expansions that defied post-World War I treaties. The unprecedented scale of mobilization and destruction blurred the lines between civilian and military targets, catalyzing a new era of warfare. The consequences of World War II not only determined the trajectory of the 20th century, but continue to resonate in modern geopolitics. Causes of the war: a complex web of grievances and ambitions. The origins of World War II can be traced back to the aftermath of World War I. The Treaty of Versailles, 1919, imposed severe reparations on Germany, fueling deep resentment that gave rise to the nationalist and revanchist sentiments that Adolf Hitler capitalized on. Germany, stripped of territories and militarily weakened, found itself economically crippled and politically fragmented, paving the way for the Nazi Party's ascent in the 1930s. Simultaneously, other powers sought to revise the global order to their advantage. Italy, under Benito Mussolini, embraced expansionist ambitions in Africa, which led to the invasion of Ethiopia in 1935. Japan, emerging as a militarist power, sought to dominate East Asia, beginning with its invasion of Manchuria in 1931, and later expanding into China in 1937. These aggressive moves challenged the League of Nations, exposing its ineffectiveness as a peacekeeping body. The ideological divide further exacerbated tensions. Fascist, militarist, and expansionist regimes in Germany, Japan, and Italy formed the Axis powers, intent on revising the world order through force. Meanwhile, Western democracies, weakened by economic depression and haunted by the devastation of World War I, initially pursued policies of appeasement, hoping to avoid another conflict. The Munich Agreement of 1938, which permitted Hitler's annexation of the Sudetenland, is emblematic of this policy. However, Hitler's unchecked aggression soon led to the invasion of Poland in September 1939, triggering declarations of war by Britain and France. Globalization of conflict, the transformation into total war. World War II quickly transformed into a total war, where national economies, technologies, and populations were fully mobilized for the war effort. Germany's blitzkrieg tactics rapidly overwhelmed Poland, France, and much of Europe by mid-1940, leaving Britain isolated but defiant. The Axis powers expanded their reach, with Japan seeking hegemony in Asia and Italy attempting to build a Mediterranean empire. In 1941, two critical events globalized the conflict further. First, Germany's invasion of the Soviet Union in June, Operation Barbarossa, opened the Eastern Front, initiating a brutal war of annihilation. Second, Japan's attack on Pearl Harbor in December brought the United States into the war, transforming it into a truly global struggle. What characterized World War II as a total war was the scale of its mobilization and the obliteration of traditional distinctions between military and civilian targets. Strategic bombing campaigns, such as the Luftwaffe's blitz over Britain and the Allies' firebombing of Dresden and Tokyo, sought to cripple industrial capacity and civilian morale. Technological advancements, particularly in tanks, aircraft, and submarines, revolutionized combat. The war culminated in the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, marking a profound shift in the destructive potential of modern warfare. Turning points: the Axis overstretched. By 1942, the Axis powers' rapid territorial gains began to falter. Key battles shifted the momentum in favor of the Allies. The Battle of Stalingrad, 1942 to 1943. Marked as one of the bloodiest battles in history, this Soviet victory halted Germany's advance into the Soviet Union and marked the beginning of a relentless Soviet push westward. The Battle of Midway, 1942. A decisive naval victory by the United States over Japan in the Pacific, which weakened Japan's offensive capabilities and shifted the balance of power in the Pacific. The Allied invasion of North Africa and Italy, 1942 to 1943. The success of Operation Torch and the subsequent invasion of Italy further diminished Axis control in Europe and the Mediterranean. From these turning points, the Axis powers were forced into retreat, losing the strategic initiative they had enjoyed during the early years of the war. The Allies, bolstered by the industrial might of the United States and the sheer manpower of the Soviet Union, coordinated large-scale offensives on multiple fronts. The road to victory and its complex legacies. The Allied counteroffensives, notably the D-Day invasion of Normandy in June 1944, pushed Germany into a two-front war. Simultaneously, the Soviet Red Army advanced through Eastern Europe, reclaiming lost territory and pushing towards Berlin. By May 1945, the Axis powers in Europe had collapsed, leading to the unconditional surrender of Nazi Germany on the 8th of May, 1945. In the Pacific, the war dragged on until August 1945, when the U.S., seeking to avoid a costly invasion of Japan, dropped atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Coupled with the Soviet Union's invasion of Japanese-held Manchuria, these events led to Japan's surrender on the 2nd of September, 1945. Political and economic aftermath, a new world order. The end of World War II saw the dismantling of the Axis powers, but the conflict's aftermath extended beyond the military realm, profoundly affecting global politics, economics, and society. The rise of superpowers and the Cold War. The United States and the Soviet Union emerged from the war as the dominant global superpowers, marking the beginning of the Cold War. Their differing ideologies, capitalism versus communism, set the stage for decades of geopolitical rivalry, shaping conflicts in Europe, Asia, and beyond. Decolonization. The war accelerated the decline of European colonial empires, particularly those of Britain and France. Weakened by the war and facing growing nationalist movements, these powers could no longer maintain their colonial holdings in Africa, Asia, and the Middle East. This decolonization wave profoundly reshaped global politics, creating new nations and geopolitical challenges. The creation of international institutions. Recognizing the failures of the League of Nations, the Allies established the United Nations in 1945 to foster international cooperation and prevent future conflicts. The UN's creation marked a shift towards multilateral diplomacy and the establishment of a rules-based international order. Simultaneously, institutions like the International Monetary Fund, IMF, and the World Bank were founded to stabilize the global economy and promote post-war reconstruction. Economic rebuilding and the Marshall Plan. Europe, devastated by the war, required extensive rebuilding. The United States, seeking to contain Soviet influence, initiated the Marshall Plan in 1948, providing financial aid to Western European nations. This program not only facilitated economic recovery, but also cemented the transatlantic alliance, laying the groundwork for the European Economic Community, EEC, and eventually the European Union. Social consequences, the human cost and post-war transformations. World War II inflicted unprecedented human suffering, with an estimated 85 million fatalities, over half of them civilians. Genocides such as the Holocaust, the massacre of Chinese civilians by Japanese forces, and atrocities committed across occupied territories highlighted the war's moral dimensions. The Holocaust in particular prompted global reflection on human rights, leading to the adoption of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948. The war also transformed gender roles and labor markets. With millions of men conscripted, women entered the workforce in unprecedented numbers, a social shift that would influence post-war economic structures and contribute to the rise of feminist movements in the latter half of the 20th century. Conclusion: the legacy of World War II. World War II was more than a military conflict. It was a total war that reshaped the global order. Its aftermath set the stage for the Cold War, accelerated decolonization, and established new international norms for diplomacy, economy, and human rights. The lessons of World War II, particularly regarding the dangers of unchecked aggression, totalitarianism, and ethnic nationalism, remain relevant in today's international relations. As such, the conflict continues to serve as a powerful reminder of both the destructive capacity of warfare and the resilience of the global community in rebuilding and seeking a more just and peaceful world.